Hi guys, welcome back. My name is Jeremy with Great Escapes RV. Today we're going to be showing you how to set up your Quantum 26 RS. Your first step would be to bring in your power cord from your camper over to the pedestal set up at your campground. So if we walk over to the pedestal, the first thing we're going to check is to make sure that our 30 amp breaker is in the off position. And of course, this being a 30 amp service, we're going to use our 30 amp plug over here. So now we'll go over to the camper, open up our little lid that's holding our power cord, and from here the power cord pulls out. Make sure you pull out enough to reach over to your campsite power pedestal. Run your cord over, plug it in, and from here you're good to go ahead and cut your breaker on, and now your camper should be powered. Alright guys, now we're going to go ahead and go through the inside and put your slide out room into the out position. Your first step, if you were not plugged into shore power, you would have to turn on your coach batteries by flipping the switch up to the use position. Next, we'll step to the back here. Because we are already plugged into shore power, the bypass for the emergency brake is not in effect. So now we can go ahead and press the extend button and the slide out room will start sliding out. While holding the extend button, you'll hear your motor running, and once it comes in contact with the wall, it automatically stops itself, so you know you're in the full extended position. Afterwards, you go ahead and grab the tail end of your mattress and fold it out, and you're ready to sleep. So now we're going to talk about hooking up to your waste dumping station. Whether you have the luxury of being at a full hookup site like we are here today, or whether you have to bring this over to a dumping location to dump your waste, the process will still be the same. Our first step would be to step over to our dump port and take the cap out. Next, we'll take our universal 90-degree adapter, go ahead and set it down in there and tighten it up. The nice thing about this adapter is it will fit into the 3 universal sizes that every campground around America uses. So after we have our 90-degree connector hooked up, we'll then take our septic hose, bring it over. Oh, I grabbed the wrong end. We'll grab the end with the little black cleat sticking out, set it into our hose, and then it twist locks into place. That way it's good and secure and not going to pull out. We'll then take the other end of our hose and bring it over here to our waste dumping station. We'll unscrew the cap. A little water dripping out is normal. Then we'll take our hose and go ahead and turn it on there, and now it is completely attached. At this point, we'll do a normal dumping routine, which will require us dumping our black tank first and then our gray tank second. That way all the gray water kind of chases out the rest of the toilet paper fragments that may remain in your hose. After you hear no more water coming out of your system, you'll go ahead and close your gray tank off first and then your black tank off second. Unscrew your line and lift up with it. And now we're going to walk the line all the way back down to our 90-degree connector. That way nothing remains in the hose. So lifting it up and walking it down. Then we'll unscrew this end and go ahead and remove our 90-degree adapter. And there you have it. That's how you dump your tanks on this Quantum. Once you finish dumping out your waste, you will then come to the rear of your camper, put your finger in the hole, and pull out the cap. From here, we can take our septic hose and store it inside. So now we're getting ready to go ahead and hook up to our city water connection. Our first step would be to take our pressure regulator here, which limits the amount of water pressure coming out of the faucet. A lot of campgrounds, they don't know whether they're going to have 20 campers or 2 campers, so the pressure is usually on the higher end, around the 100 psi mark. This pressure reducer will limit you down to 50 psi, that way you don't blow any gaskets out in your sinks or in your shower. So our first step would be to pull this little cap off, set the pressure reducer inside, and go ahead and tighten up the nut. Once the pressure reducer is installed, we can then take the end of our water hose and screw it into the pressure reducer. Then we grab the other end of our water hose and take it over to our water hookup. Once we're all hooked up, we're ready to go ahead and cut the water on. And now we're ready to camp.
Do it one more time.
After you've cut your water on, it's always best to go back through and make sure that there are no leaks. That way there's no damage to the camper, and that way you don't erode away the dirt on the campsite. So if it's leaking a little bit, go ahead and try to tighten it up a little bit more. See if that fixes your problem. In this case, it did, so we're ready to go. So we're gonna follow our line back, making sure there's no holes in our hose and that we're not leaking anywhere, whether out of the camper or out of our pressure reducer. So now we're gonna go ahead and talk about your potable water tank. This is for taking water with you, whether it's just that way you can use the restroom while you're going down the road, or if it's for dry camping, anywhere where you won't have that city water hookup. So of course, before you leave the site, you're gonna have to make sure you hook your water hose up, bring it over, set it just inside this fill, then go back over to your water faucet and cut it on. Our next stop here on the outside is going to be a stop at our outdoor shower. That way, in case you have any kids or animals, you can rinse them off before they bring their muddy feet inside. So on our keychain, it'll be the smallest key with a black base. Goes in, unlocks, and there's our outdoor shower. That way, in case you have muddy boots or anything, you can always give them a good rinse off before you go inside. And of course, you do have a little stand here. That way, in case you're washing your own hands, you don't have to hold the hose. But of course, as soon as you're done with it, you're gonna wanna make sure you coil it back up in here properly with the shower head sitting on top. Take our door, close it up, and make sure we go ahead and lock it. That way it doesn't come open, especially if we're about to hit the road. Our next step in setting up this camper would be to go ahead and cut our propane on. That way our stove and oven and even our furnace are all prepared. So it's easy to find. This panel is the first panel on the driver's side, and the knob you'll need to turn is right down here with the notice sticker on it. Turning it counterclockwise to cut it on and open it up to allow propane to flow freely. So next we're going to show you the location of your water heater on the outside of the camper. There's nothing you should have to do with it because the switches to cut it on are on the inside, but just to solve your curiosity, we'll go ahead and open it up for you. So right here next to our fuel cap, we have a little Furrion TV box. If we go ahead and open this up, we'll have a connection for coax line, whether it be cable or satellite. The nice thing is, if your campground offers cable, all you have to do is run the line over to here, and then it's already ran inside the walls of the camper over to your televisions. So there's no extra work you have to do. Alright guys, now we're going to talk about your main control center. Up here, we're going to have our tank checks. So for checking our propane tank levels, our battery levels, our freshwater tank, our black water tank, and our gray water tank. Our black water tank is going to be our toilet tank. Our gray water will be from our sinks and our showers, and our freshwater tank is for taking potable water with you on the road. It's best to wait until you see that your black tank is at the 2/3 full mark before you dump it. And with your gray tank, it's going to fill up a lot quicker than your black tank will. The average American uses 15 gallons of water every time they shower, so in about 2 days your gray tank would be full and ready to be dumped. Down here we have your tank heaters. These are for if you're getting below 32 degrees in climate. You can cut your 2 tank heaters on, and this would prevent the water inside of your black tank and your gray tank from freezing and breaking the tank. We have our water pump switch. This is for giving us potable water from our tank to our faucets. So if you didn't have the luxury of having a city water hose hooked up to the outside, you can still get water to your sinks and showers by cutting on your water pump. Then we have our water heater selections. At a campsite, you're going to want to go ahead and run your electric water heater. That way you're not having to foot the bill for the propane. If you're out dry camping somewhere where you don't have that 30 amp plug-in, you can always cut it on propane. That way you can still have hot water without being plugged into electricity. But let's say, for instance, someone used up all the hot water and you were still looking forward to a shower. You can go ahead and cut them both on. In about 10 minutes worth of time, your tank would have already recovered and you would be able to shower. Lastly, we have our generator start and stop up here. We're not going to go over the operations of it, but this is one of the locations you can turn it on from. So our next step, we're going to show you how to roll out your awning. That way you can still enjoy your sunny days outside. So down here on the left hand side, as soon as you walk in the door, you'll see your switch here in the middle for your awning. Pressing the up button will roll it in, pressing the down button will roll it out. While you are extending your awning out, you do want to watch it. That way you can stop it once it hits full extension, and that way, in case there's any trees or other items that might be in the way, you can stop before coming into any contact with them. So after your awning is fully extended, to adjust the pitch to allow water to drain off, whether it be slight rain or just normal condensation in the morning, you can grab either one of these 2 sides and give it a small pull down. And from here, you can see that the pitch of your awning will now allow water to drain off to this front corner. And it is perfectly okay to leave it in this bent position to go ahead and roll it back in. But the big rules of thumb are never fall asleep and never leave the campsite with your awning out. Too much can happen whenever you're not paying attention, whether it be a heavy storm or just a big gust of wind could come through. So it's always best to be careful. If it's starting to storm, go ahead and roll everything back in to avoid damages. Next up, we're going to go ahead and talk about our power. So whenever we're plugged into shore power at the campsite, or whenever we have our generator running, those are the only times we'll have 110 power. And I know it can get confusing trying to decide what is 12 volt and what is 110, but the easy rule of thumb is if it plugs in, it's going to be 110. So appliances such as our microwave here will only work when we're plugged into shore power or running off of the generator. Same goes with the televisions, and even running the electric side of your refrigerator is going to be off 110 power only. Next up, we're going to talk about our refrigerator. This camper comes with an RV rated refrigerator, meaning it runs off of electricity or off propane. Anytime it's plugged into the 30 amp outlet outside, it is going to be running off electricity. The second that cord is disconnected, it would automatically switch over to propane for you. This fridge does take 12 hours to cool off initially, so you're going to want to make sure you plug it in at the house at least 12 hours before you start your trip. If you don't have a plug-in, go ahead and switch it over to gas. Even though it is using your propane, it's not as much as you would think. But running off of propane is how you keep it cold going down the road. That way any groceries in here don't go bad on you. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and show you how to use your stovetop and oven along with your vent hood. That way, in case you're cooking bacon or anything that turns very smoky, you can always ventilate it to the outside. But with our stovetop, we'll turn our knob to light, and then using our infinite spark striker, go ahead and click over and it lights right up. And it works the same for the other 2 burners as well. This front burner is going to be our high output burner, so that's where we're going to do most of our cooking, but it still turns down low enough that way you can simmer a pot of chili if you ever had that need. Our oven is going to be a little old school. it will require a lighter to light the pilot. So if we turn the knob for the oven over to pilot, at this point we'll have to press and hold the knob in to allow propane to start flowing freely. We'll then take our lighter, and on the right side of this silver bar, we'll light our pilot light. Once it's lit, we still need to hold the button on the knob in for about 10 to 15 seconds to allow the thermocoupler to heat up. After those 15 seconds, you can let go of the knob and the pilot light stays lit. And from here, we can crank it up and start cooking. But of course, if you're staying for extended periods of time, you can always turn the knob back down to pilot, and your pilot light will stay lit. That way you don't have to continuously light it yourself. So here in our bathroom, we're gonna go ahead and talk about our RV toilet, since it's not like the conventional toilet you would find in your household. This toilet will work based off this foot pedal located over here on the left-hand side while you're sitting. And in order to fill the bowl, you'll have to push halfway down on the handle. Water will start entering, and as you can see, it's starting to pull up inside the bowl. So now, once you've done your business, you'll push all the way down on the foot pedal, and it'll go ahead and flush it down, close it back up, and go ahead and put a little bit of water back in there. That way the missus doesn't get too mad at you. Next, we're going to talk about your max air vent fan located above the bed in the back of the camper. This one will be a manual crank up and crank down. So turning the knob counterclockwise, we'll go ahead and raise the vent hood up. And from here, we can go ahead and cut on our fan to get a little bit of ventilation coming through the camper. The nice thing is, it comes equipped with the max air vent covers, so even if it's raining, you can still leave this hood up to ventilate to the outside. But once you're done, you'll go ahead and cut the fan off and crank this back down. That way, when you go to leave, everything's all sealed up and you're ready to go. So now we're gonna go ahead and talk about the generator. The real times you would need to use the generator is if you were at a campsite that didn't have a power plug in, or if you were stopping on the side of the highway for the night, couldn't find anywhere else to stop. But what you'll do is you'll come in here, you'll hold down the stop button until this red LED pops up showing you that your generator is primed. After that, we can go ahead and hold the start button and it cranks right up. The display here will show you how many hours it's been running for, but as long as this red light stays on, you know your generator is still running. One quick note with your generator is make sure you're courteous to others. So if people are within a close proximity, you want to make sure you have a clear passageway. That way any exhaust is carried off with the wind and that you're not infecting other customers with your carbon monoxide. Just a quick safety tip to make sure that you're being nice to other campers. So now we're done camping, we're ready to pack up and go home. What we're gonna do is exactly the same as how we set up, just in reverse order. So our first step would be to bring our slide room in, disconnect our water hose, and then finally unplug our power cord and coil it back up on the inside. Before we go to take off though, we're gonna do what we call here at Great Escapes an up, down, and all around. So at this point, we'll check up on our roof to make sure there's no heavy debris up there. We'll look down on the ground to make sure there's no tire chocks, hoses, or wires laying underneath, anything that would get damaged if we pulled off. And finally, we're gonna walk all the way around the camper to ensure that nothing is left hooked up and that we're completely free. That way when we pull away from the campsite, we're ready to go. Hi guys, so now we're back here at Great Escapes. You can see we just brought our trailer back into service center. That way I can get ready for the next customer. But we hope that this educational video will help you in your future endeavors. That way in case you have any problems, you can always look back on this video to help you get through your camping trip. If you have any more problems, you're always welcome to call up here to our service center. We'd be happy to help. And huge shout out to Denton Ferry for letting us shoot this video on their campground. Absolutely phenomenal, beautiful view of the White River. And don't forget guys, like, subscribe, comment, and share. That way we can get our word out there and hopefully get a few more people through a wonderful camping trip. And always remember guys, I'm camping.
escapes are